Good morning, everyone. Today we will be discussing about roots and xylem vessel, to be very specific, in a vascular bundle in this video. We know that the key elements of photosynthesis are carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. And we know by now that carbon dioxide enters the leaf from the atmosphere. It's present in our environment, so it enters from the air into the leaf, and the passage from where it enters, it's the stoma, and then it enters the leaf. About water, we know the root, that it enters from the soil into the roots, and then to the stem, and then it enters the leaf. Water has to go through a long path to reach the leaf. So we will be discussing about water in detail. About sunlight, we know that sunlight, the source of sunlight is obviously the sun, and this sunlight enters the leaf through the cuticle, and then it passes on from the upper epidermis, which is a very thin layer of cells. It does have chloroplast, and then it enters the major part of a leaf, which is a palisade mesophyll layer where most of the photosynthesis takes place. So I can say that the sunlight is absorbed by chlorophyll, which is a green pigment in chloroplast. So briefly, very briefly, I discussed the path, how to get these elements into the leaf to perform photosynthesis. Now in the upcoming slides, we will be discussing in detail how are we obtaining these elements from the environment and from the soil into a leaf. Okay. The very first thing we will be discussing about the briefly, very briefly, we will be discussing about the internal structure of a leaf. I have previously talked about the internal structure of a leaf in a lot more detail. I will also add the link of that video in this video as well, so you can go and watch it. Very briefly, if I talk about the internal structure of a leaf, so this part of stoma, this is very important because from this part, carbon dioxide is entering and oxygen is leaving into the environment. So I can briefly say that this particular part of a leaf is responsible for the exchange of gases. This is also a function of a stoma, that it performs the exchange of gases. Carbon dioxide enters into the leaf from this path, and when the oxygen is being made with the process of photosynthesis, because we know that oxygen is a byproduct, it leaves the leaf from the same path. So carbon dioxide enters the leaf from stoma, and we all know that sunlight enters from this medium. It passes on from cuticle into the upper epidermis and then into the layer of palisade mesophyll. So the palisade mesophyll layer has a lot of chloroplasts, and we know that chloroplast contains chlorophyll. So you can say that palisade layer is that one layer inside a leaf that is performing photosynthesis, that is majorly performing photosynthesis. So in just these, when we just talk about this leaf, we know that how these two key elements are being obtained: carbon dioxide and sunlight. Now, if we talk about the source of water, so we all know that in a plant, if I roughly sketch a plant, we know that it is obtaining water from the soil. So the path is from the soil into the roots. But one thing we are missing in this path that holds a lot of importance. And what is it? It is the root hair cell. It's not the root hair cell inside the roots have such adaptation that it absorbs so much water that it can fulfill the needs of a plant. So here we have a structure that shows a root hair cell. Root hair cell has this elongated part unlike other cells. It is a specialized cell made specifically for this function. And if I would compare, we do have a similar kind of finger-like projection in our large and small intestine as well. Because over there, we need that kind of a specialized structure for the absorption of nutrients. And over here, in a plant, we have the similar kind of projection in a root hair cell. Now, what is it doing? Let's take a very brief example. What if your root hair cell would be a regular plant cell? So the surface area which will be contact with the soil would be this only. Suppose if this was 2 centimeters, so only 2 centimeter of the area is exposed to the soil. You must be wondering why I'm not counting this and this area, because you see that the cells are aligned, so only one side of the cell is exposed to the soil. But what if I make this elongated part that is exposed to the soil? So if I may say that this was 1 centimeter and this was 1 centimeter, this was 2 centimeter and this was 2 centimeter. So if I sum it up, now the area that is exposed is 1, 1, 2, 4, 6 centimeter. So what is the benefit of this kind of a specialized cell? That the area that is exposed to soil is greater than this area. So this elongation, this projection, this root hair cell is basically giving us a large surface area for the rapid absorption of water and minerals. So in between soil and roots, we have root hair cell. Our roots have this root hair cell at its border so that all the water and the nutrients are then being absorbed. You see these arrows, they show the path of water which is moving into the plant. So the very first contact of the water and minerals is with the root hair cell, then with the root cortex cells, and then it enters the part of the xylem vessel. Now, since we have reached the path of xylem vessel, so we know that it is from soil to the root hair cell, then it enters the root, and then it moves towards the stem area. We know that a stem is made up of vascular bundle and specifically xylem and phloem. Now I'll very quickly discuss about xylem only. So xylem is a long, hollow, hard wall, strong tube. It is only one way, and that way is from the roots to the leaf. So xylem vessel is basically responsible for the transportation of water and mineral. Now, if you see xylem vessel in these three structures, so you will see xylem vessel in the middle structure. Over here in the root, this is xylem. In the stem, this is xylem. And in a leaf, this part, the upper part is the xylem.